Hey, Newsa-Cast listeners, you can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Please help us grow by subscribing or sharing the Newsa-Cast with friends, or follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. Now, let's get this show on the road.
All of a sudden, I'm in my mid-20s, and I'm a head varsity coach. And honestly, it was a lot of trial by fire. You know, I give a lot of credit to that athletic director for not only giving me an opportunity, but just allowing me to try to make a program my own.
Welcome to the Newsa-Cast. What is a Newsa-Cast? It's where we bring local folk stories to life through conversation.
Welcome to your New Year episode. Starting off 2024 with a bang, hopefully. It's been a blast so far, Joe.
It has.
Enjoying doing all these episodes. It's been fun.
Oh, I love it, Tosh. I love it. How long does it take? Not that many people write checks anymore, but how many months does it take you to write the correct year when you're writing out a check?
Oh, I have I kind of get it right
Do
away.
you? Yeah. You're a better man than me, Tosh.
So
It's a memory thing, Tosh. It's not my strong suit, that's for sure. Did you have a good New Year's? Happy New Year, by the way.
yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to all the listeners as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was fun. Ethan had some people over, some guys, and they were playing darts and air hockey and ping pong and NHL on the PlayStation or Xbox, whatever they were playing. And we got together with some neighbors and kind of had dinner at one neighbor's house, and then went to another neighbor's house and watched a Packer game. And just kind of, it was kind of low key, to be honest. How about yourself, Joe?
Yeah, mine was kind of low key as well. Got together with a couple of friends from work and went to their house, and everybody brought a snack, and we just had a game night, shot the breeze, and it was really nice. Actually stayed up till midnight. I don't do that every year, so had a nice, played a new game, Frackle, I think it was called, nice dice game, and had a lot of fun.
Nothing wrong with that. Have some adult beverages as well.
I had a little wine, had a little champagne, I even had a little beer. Did the old rainbow, I guess, now that I think about it.
You might as well go for it all on New Year's Eve, right?
That's right. Amateur night, but no, we
amateur night.
Kept it low key. House parties are the not that this was a house party, but you know what I mean. We kept it low key, and it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, that's fantastic. So what are you looking forward to in the new year, Joe?
Well, most definitely the Newsa-Cast, Tosh. We talked about how much fun we're having, and I really am looking forward to this. I mean, I feel like you and I are kind of hitting our stride. We're understanding what we want to do before we hit record tonight. You and I always kind of have our little pregame. We talk about who we want to bring on, and we have some really cool ideas. So from that standpoint, I'm really, really excited for us to just keep this going and hopefully maybe find some sponsors, and more than anything, just keep doing what we're doing, just finding really cool and interesting people. So that's really, really what I'm looking forward to in 2024. How about you?
Just piggybacking on what you said, just sitting and talking, there's a lot of people that we would like to have on, but there's a lot of people in this community that we don't even know about. Which, listeners, if you have suggestions, this is that time when we're going to shout out to you and say, email us, newsacast@gmail.com. That's, we'd love to be able to connect with people in the community who have a good story. Yeah. You've listened to 25 episodes of the Newsa-Cast, and you kind of know what it's about at this point.
I hope so.
And hopefully we can, get some people that you would like to hear on this Newsa-Cast as well. But I think we do have some good interviews coming up. We have some people to connect with, and I think it's going to continue in the right direction. And like you said, I think one of the biggest things is if we can continue to put out content, but also get some of the sponsors back so we can start looking at what we can do for youth sports in our community.
No, exactly. And like we said in last week's episode, it's important for us to keep this podcast going, to kind of keep the word out, keep things relevant, just spread the word. We'll look at doing a live event as well at some point, and that can't guarantee exactly what that'll look like, when that'll happen, but it's something that we're definitely going to look at as well. So we got a lot of cool things, I think, lined up. We're having a lot of fun. We kind of feel rejuvenated, reborn, and we feel like we kind of found a niche. We feel like people kind of like this kind of stuff. Kind of seems that way.
And, that goes back to another point. Give us your feedback as well.
Yeah, we like that.
If you're listening, if you like that, we'd love to know what you think. So feedback is awesome. You can email us, write reviews on wherever you get your podcasts or YouTube, and just continue to let us know. If this is something you want to continue to see happening, give us some ideas, give us some feedback, so we know we're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. Tosh, on a personal note, I mean, you and I share the same views with the Newsa-Cast, but how about you? Not maybe it doesn't even have to be a resolution, but what anything you're looking forward to in 2024?
I think the biggest things for me is just seeing what my boys and the family are going to continue to do. Will will be finishing his freshman year at college, and Ethan. I'm excited for Ethan as well, finishing the hockey season. We have about a month here, a couple months really with playoffs and stuff for hockey. But I'm excited for the lacrosse to be WIAA and see where that goes. That's going to be interesting. Ethan will be a freshman, so it'll be the first year that's WIAA, so that'll be cool. It's, it's watching my boys grow, and hopefully everybody stays healthy and continues on the right paths, and just keep going forward.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, that's ultimately what the resolution would be, right, for us. I mean, you think about your family, about your kids, you want them to do well. I do, I've never been much of a resolution person. Last year, I actually did, and actually hit my resolutions. So I'm definitely going to keep those. I think I'm just going to renew them, and they're pretty simple. I want to drink more water. I think that's important. Okay. I still got one from PFT on Pardon My Take, but that kind of makes sense. Just drink more water. Should be easy to do, obtainable. And then my other one is simple. I mean, it went really well last year. I think I'm going to keep it going this year, and that's just to simply just not cut my hair.
There you go.
I'm good. I think I can hit these two again this year.
I think you can. Yeah, I'm not a resolution person, so I'm not even going to throw anything out there.
Well, we're good.
I know people have those resolutions, and I love seeing all the memes and stuff out there that, January 1st and all these big plans, and January 2nd, all plans shot.
Oh, absolutely.
So, hopefully it's not that bad for people.
It's just like, it's funny like a gym. You'll go month of January, it's just packed. There's no parking. You can't, get on a machine. February 1st, place is just, like it used to be, just wide open. Everything's open.
That is pretty funny. And I guess, this is New Year's Day, but we got to talk about the Packers a little bit here. Fantastic. They looked really good against those evil Minnesota Vikings and put themselves in a good place. All they have to do is win and do something that a lot of people didn't think they would, and that's possibly make the playoffs. Yeah,
I think I even mentioned that they were dead on this show, a while back. Hello to the dogs. I love that.
Yeah.
They agree. Yeah, I mean, The NFL is something, Tosh, isn't it? I guess it's not over until it's over. So you're right. You win, you're in.
Right.
As Mike Holmgren used to say, just qualify for the tournament. Anything can happen after that. So
the NFL is, you have one team that's looking really dominant right now,
and
that's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
But everybody else, I mean, the Eagles lose the third in a row and not looking very good. The Chiefs looking okay. San Francisco's looking good, but there's a lot of teams that are packed up. where anybody can beat anybody on any given Sunday.
They really can, because every one of those teams you mentioned at one time, those were the can't lose teams. So teams, and it's always been this way. They ebb and flow. They streak. You get hot at the right time, and
yeah,
there's luck involved. Injuries play a part, but there's just flat out luck sometimes that are involved in these games. So that's why you play the football games. The NFL is great right now with this final week and hit the playoffs, and it's a run to the Super Bowl. It's football at its finest.
It's always fun when there's a lot of excitement yet the last week of the season.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And there's a lot of teams playing for something this week. So week 18 should be fun.
Absolutely. We'll be watching.
Well, with that, I think we can move on. And like we said, catch us wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you like, subscribe, download, whatever you need to do to make sure you can continue to get these podcasts. And also check out the YouTube channel. And if you get your podcasts that way, or check out the throwbacks on YouTube. All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, it's time for the new year, and we're going to take an old look at new. That look at history, the look at things going on around our neck of the woods in Northeast Wisconsin, or anywhere. So, Joe, I'm going to throw it to you right away. What's your old look at new today?
Yeah, Tosh. Well, last week, we had Taylor, our producer, on, and he helped us with an old look at new, and he took a look at a Packer fact at a Packer game, and I thought, you know what? A lot of really great things happened to the Green Bay Packers right around this time of year. You and I are recording on New Year's Day, but on New Year's Eve, 1961, now we're all familiar with the Ice Bowl. This was a little bit before the Ice Bowl, but same date, December 31st, 1961, the Packers hosted the NFL championship game at City Stadium. That was Lambeau Field, but it was not Lambeau Field yet. That would be 4 years later. In the days leading up to that game, there was an awesome picture. The field was covered with a tarp and a foot of hay to keep the grass dry under 14 inches of snow. So there's a picture like the night before. Lambeau is, I don't know, a third of what it is right now. And just, 1961 equipment, big tractors pulling this hay off. Packers went on to beat the New York Football Giants 37-0, and another championship for the Green Bay Packers, Tosh, in 1961.
Nice.
So
yeah, they didn't quite have coils underneath the grass in 1961, right?
The legend, I can't remember for sure, but I always was under the Lombardi always, I guess, got credit for wanting that under there. 61, though, Lombardi, that would have been a Lombardi year, I believe, right? I think that maybe that even would have been his first year. I can't remember exactly, but 14 inches of snow, though, compared to what we have now. My goodness.
Right, exactly.
Well, Tosh, how about you? What's your old look at new?
Like you said, we're recording this on New Year's Day, 2024. So, one of the things that I love on New Year's Day is the Rose Bowl. So if we go all the way back to 1902, the first Rose Bowl was played in 1902, and Michigan beat Stanford 49-0.
Wow, that's a lot of scoring in 1902.
Yeah. So, that was the first Rose Bowl in 1902.
At the same location? Is it the same location in Pasadena?
I don't think it was at the same location.
Sure.
I think they called it Tournament Park.
Okay.
So it wasn't the exact location it is now, but it was the Rose Bowl. But I don't think it was played every year. I think there was a break in there, and it didn't get played again. I'd have to look that up, but I want to say not until like 1912.
The history of just the development of California is pretty interesting. During that time, I mean, it was nothing like it is now. And at that time, Hollywood was hardly, it wasn't even really there. It was
right.
I just listened to a really awesome podcast talking about the gold rush in 1948, 1949. It was pretty interesting to see the explosion, to understand the explosion in California.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's two good old looking news. They pretty relevant for New Year's Day.
Yes. So Tosh, that was another exciting segment of An Old Look at New.
All right, Newsa-Cast listeners, I had a chance to sit down with Luke Herriges, who is the AD and the girls volleyball coach, the two-time state champion girls volleyball coach. And we had just had a little talk about his growing up, sports he played, and his coaching, and also what's going on at Xavier. So really hope you enjoy this interview. And we'll kick it off to Luke Herriges. What we're going to do today is get to know Luke a little bit more and talk about his runs and just what's going on at Xavier in general. So, hey, welcome to the podcast, Luke.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is fun. I mean, I know Luke a little bit because I'm the manager of the Fox City Stars boys hockey team, and Luke at Xavier is our AD, and Xavier's our host school. So I have quite a bit of contact with Luke, and I'm really excited to hear more about his volleyball and his interest. I know him from a AD standpoint, but I want all of you to get to know him a little bit more as well. So this should be fun, Luke. I guess we'll start out just talking about you a little bit. Where did you grow up, and what were some interests that you had, and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I'm from Kewaskum, Wisconsin, so about an hour south of here, near West Bend.
Okay.
And growing up, I mean, I played sports from little on. I mean, everyone gets involved with like the T-balls and the soccers and things like that. But then basketball and track took a big. They were kind of in the forefront. Those were the things I focused on for a long time, and did basketball and track all the way through high school at Kewaskum. Okay. And after high school as well, I did some track in college, and even played a partial year of football and found volleyball as well. And that was all at Lakeland University, okay, over in the Plymouth Sheboygan area.
Yeah. How did you find volleyball at college? I mean, you didn't play in high school,
right? Yeah. So my randomly assigned freshman roommate in college was on the men's volleyball team, and okay, after a lot of convincing, he finally got me to go to a couple open gyms and just hang around with the team. And eventually I gave it a shot, and fortunately, Lakeland being Division III, there's just a ton of opportunities for students that also want to be athletes. And really fortunate to have that opportunity, because it's definitely shaped and directed my path in life.
That's awesome. I do have a question for you. When I was coaching baseball at Lawrence, we obviously played Lakeland a few times and have been to that campus. So what drew you to Lakeland University? I mean, it's a great school, but it's kind of by itself.
It is. What didn't draw me was the campus. No, it is literally in the middle of a cornfield. That's not even an exaggeration. And everyone jokes about that. But I had actually 3 cousins that are quite a bit older than me, had graduated there back in the day. And the one cousin he was on the board of trustees there, and he knew I was a little bit undecided late in high school where I wanted to go and what I wanted to study. So, he pushed Lakeland. I had a visit. Again, it took me a little bit of convincing, and eventually, took the leap and made it home for 4 years. So
that's awesome. I suppose, I mean, when you really think about it, and a school like Lakeland offers a lot, because you do get those small class sizes, and you get that feeling that everybody there is kind of family. And is that something that you liked from Lakeland?
Yeah, I mean, at Kewaskum, it was, I mean, I had a class of around 150, pretty small. Lakeland, and we weren't too much bigger, 200, 225. And, it was like going to a bigger high school in that sense, which, being from a small town, that was, it was comfortable. I don't know how I would have done in big classes with 100 or 200 students in one room at a time, but having 20 to 30 students, it felt like home, and it really worked out.
And you're close enough to home also that, you're far enough away to be away, but still close enough to be a family. So that's great.
Yeah. Home was about an hour drive, so it was easy to get back when I needed to.
That's awesome. You had no aspirations going to Lakeland about playing any sports. It was just going to school, and this kind of fell in your lap a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit. I was still into track. So I did run track for 2.5 years at Lakeland. And so I high jumped there and did some triple jump for them. But the track program was kind of a startup. To this day, Lakeland still doesn't have a track on campus. We'd go to Howard's Grove High School,
sure,
which was about 5-10 minute drive, and we'd train there. But once I found volleyball, that started to take the priority.
Okay, and what was it about volleyball that drew you in automatically?
It's fun. It is a fun sport, and it was a new challenge. But having that multi-sport background, I was able to pick it up. I mean, in a reasonable amount of time, because multi-sport athletes are so important. That's something that we, try and hammer home at Xavier, especially. And you have all those skills, and you know what it's like to be on a team, and just had that background of training hard and applying sport-specific skills to a different sport. I was able to do that, and like I said, it's just a blast. You can play volleyball indoor 6-on-6, 2-on-2 in the sand, 3-on-3, 4-on-4. It's one of those sports that you can just pick up and play for a lifetime too.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think one of the things you just touched on is a common theme that we have through a lot of our interviews is the multi-sport and how important it is to play multiple sports so your body is being pulled in different directions. You're not just doing the same thing over and over again. And we kind of are getting to a point where we are seeing a lot of our high school athletes play multiple sports. But as you mentioned, you can't not playing multiple sports, I should say. As you mentioned, you came from a small high school. You went to a small college. Those types of environments kind of force people to play multiple sports as well. And now you're at Xavier as well, which is another smaller school. And you said you're kind of make that a priority when you talk to athletes as well.
Yeah, we're at about 460 this year for enrollment at Xavier. So, if everyone did one sport, it'd be hard to field, teams in general, but then just to have competitive teams. And I think it just creates a well-rounded person. On top of just, the skills and maybe injury prevention and things like that. But, maybe you're the star athlete in one sport and you go to a different sport and you're in a different role. Maybe you're on the bench a little bit more, maybe you have to be, take that back seat. So you can have a little bit of empathy. So when you are the star, you can be a great leader. You can make all the teammates feel valued. And when you're the one taking the back seat, you can own that role.
Right. I think back to when I was coaching at Lawrence, our baseball players, I think I can remember in 10 years of coaching one baseball player who was sport specific. Every one of our players that we had played multiple sports. And even when they came to Lawrence, again, another smaller school, some of them played multiple sports as well. Football and baseball, basketball and baseball. We even had a couple of wrestlers in baseball. And it is such an important piece. I love watching Division twos and the threes, and you see all of those kids who are playing multiple sports. And when you get to the D1 programs, you don't see that all the time. And I think it's just a huge part of growing up and a huge part of becoming a good person. Because like you said, it humbles you a little bit when you're not the stud player on a certain team and you got to step back and watch others do it.
Yeah, for sure. And volleyball too, it's in a tough spot. It's, club is driving it a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where, kids with dreams of maybe playing beyond high school will get seen. And, we owe a lot of our success, that credit, a lot of that's due to club. It really is. And, so we're in a little bit of a catch-22 where, okay, how do you balance both? And when is enough and when is it too much? So yeah, it is a fine balance. And, if you can have one that you focus on, but then you got one or two others that, even if you just do it for fun, like, right. I mean,
Exactly.
it's youthful. It's supposed to be fun. So yeah.
You played how many years at Lakeland?
I was on the volleyball team for 2.
2 years. Okay.
Yep.
And well, let's talk about Lakeland too. What were you doing at Lakeland? What were you studying, or what did you end up doing at Lakeland?
So I got a degree in exercise science. That was my undergrad study. And I did track my freshman, sophomore year, and then I did the indoor season my junior year, but junior year was also my first year of volleyball. Like when I say it took me some convincing to go for volleyball, it took me 2 years. So
that is some convincing.
Yeah. So after indoor season ended in about February for track, then volleyball was ongoing, but it really started picking up. And so, it was time for, me to close the door in my track career. I wasn't seeing the improvements in anything like I had been in the past. And, part of that was the facilities and just the obstacles that were in our way. But really, when that door closed, the volleyball one opened, it opened up wide, and, I've been running with it ever since.
That's awesome. So you get that degree, and what's your next path after college?
Yeah. So I spent some years between different gyms as a personal trainer.
Okay.
But immediately that fall, I was actually an assistant volleyball coach for Appleton East on the boys side. So I primarily helped JV. I did a little bit with the varsity, but the same college roommate, he was the JV coach there and asked me to just come and help. Right. And so, shaking balls and throwing them in for drills and, just getting to know the guys.
Yeah.
And so that was in 2010. And the next year I had gone to still personal training, but then I'd gone to Oshkosh North, and I was the varsity assistant there. And that head coach had been there for a while, and he took a different teaching job down in Fond du Lac. So he had left, and the Oshkosh North head varsity job kind of fell in my lap. I had been coaching for 2 years, and I played for 2. I wasn't super experienced, and all of a sudden I'm in my mid 20s, and I'm a head varsity coach, and honestly, it was a lot of trial by fire. I give a lot of credit to that athletic director for not only giving me an opportunity, but just allowing me to try to make a program my own, to make mistakes, because I'm probably not in the position I'm in right now without that.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think what helped me too was the fact that I didn't know as much about the sport as other people, because I had to go out there, and I almost had to turn it into a degree on the side. Reading books, watching videos, going to clinics, coaching club volleyball, just to, just get more experience. So I was there for 4 years before I got to Xavier in 2016. During that time as well, I did get my master's degree in coaching and athletic administration. I did it all online. I just took one class at a time through Concordia Irvine in California. So they got a great master's program. And like I said, I was just trying to learn as much as I could, not only about volleyball, but just the profession. And it just seemed like a good fit. And it seemed like something I could just fit into, your busy everyday life.
So how were those first few years being a head coach, and how did you relate to your players?
Well, I've been got a ways to go here, but at that time I was kind of like in the big brother stage, so to speak. So it wasn't that hard to relate to them because, at 25, 26 years old, you're not that much older than them.
Right.
And so they're looking up to you in a little bit of a different way so that you have a little bit of credibility just there, right? You're still kind of cool. Just enough, right? So that, but those first years, I mean, it was going off of what those other coaches had taught me.
Okay.
It was running drills and training the way that, I had been trained in college and that I had seen. And then it was just, you read a book or you go to a clinic. Hey, let's just apply something new. And it was just, look in the moment, I didn't realize it, but really looking back, I mean, it was a giant science experiment. It really was, trying to find your own principles and applying them to each skill. And volleyball is, like all sports, is very multifaceted. It's a lot more than just, bump, set, spike. And, it was great. And honestly, I just, those kids, I got to give them some credit too, because, they dealt with that. And, what I lacked maybe in volleyball acumen, I made up in just, the relationships and trying to give kids a worthwhile experience.
Do you still talk to some of those former players from that time period?
There's a few. There's a few, because they're getting up there now too. I mean, not up there, but like they're in their 30s now. And there's a few that I know have families, and they moved all over and got their degrees. But there's a couple that I still see from back in those days, and it's all smiles and well wishes when we see each other.
So that was the boys program.
So I was 2010 was Appleton East for the boys, and then 2011 was girls at North. At Oshkosh North.
Oshkosh North. Okay, so I want to know, we don't have to get into it too much, but a little bit of the differences between coaching girls and coaching boys.
Yeah, I mean there definitely are some. It's hard to put your thumb on. I think the boys are maybe a little bit more like kind of willing to maybe take risks or just let it hang out there and just go for it. And they're definitely more self-confident. Mm-hmm. The girls, though, I think you can form a relationship with them just a little bit better, because when you start teaching them something, they'll start to respect you, and then you treat them just, like a good person and a human being. And when you create that relationship piece, which was really what I could just hang on to at those early stages, because there wasn't too much, great volleyball knowledge coming out of my mouth at that time, but you earn their respect, and they will work hard for you. They want to know that you believe in them and that you appreciate them. And I prefer to coach girls over boys.
Okay.
But there's positives to both sides. And, one thing that I would just like to continue to look into, especially as an athletic director, is, how much more similar are the boys and girls? And maybe, we realize, can we coach boys? And I don't want to make this sound wrong, but can we coach boys in ways that we also coach girls, and vice versa? I think sometimes people say, hey, you can't yell at the girls. Well, yeah, you can't yell negatively, but you shouldn't be yelling negatively at the boys either.
No.
And just, that's one, just maybe that's a little bit of an archaic example, but there might be more similarities out there than we realize.
I agree with you. I grew up in a day and age where where coaches were yellers. They were definitely yellers. I had some all-time great yellers as coaches, but I also respected those coaches. But it was a different day and age. And when I was coaching at Lawrence, I noticed that too, that, I was like, well, I'm going to yell here because that's what my experience. But then I would see these kids' faces and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't work anymore. They're different. You know, we're a different group of they're a different group of kids, and I'm sure you've even seen that in the last 10 years, 13 years that you've been involved in this. Kids have definitely, you know, we've changed a little bit, and maybe you know why, but you know, I look at like social media and all these different types of things going on. But yeah, you're right. You can't be that negative yeller. You have to have that encouragement.
You do. And, you know, I think about that too, is what if I would have been coached more like that?
Yeah.
You know, I had advanced better? Would I had a better experience in some areas? Not that I had bad ones, but, you know, you look at those what ifs, because I had my handful of yellers too, you know, and I was almost like in that transition period where, you know, like, oh, they're starting to learn more about the art of coaching instead of just, yeah. And, you know, I think you're right. Social media plays into it a little bit. I mean, with your likes and your shares and everything on there, I mean, your self-confidence is on display for the public to see. And these kids just put so much of their self-worth into that. It's, you know, it's got to be hard. It really does. I mean, we didn't have texting when I was until I was in college, you know, and then you're hitting like, you know, the 8 key 4 times to get the right letter. And, you know, it was, but yeah, it has changed. And, you know, I'm not so sure, is it the kids or are we just getting better at what we do for coaching?
Yeah. Yeah. So during this time, you're learning, you're getting all kinds of new ideas, and you jump into the club. And I don't know a ton about the club volleyball scene, but it seems in my mind that early 2000s, mid 2000s was when club really started to pick up. And maybe you can talk a little bit about what that club experience was like.
Yeah. So my first experience in club was 2011, and coaching. So when I was at North, that club was primarily just Oshkosh school districts, so West and North. And then you had Lourdes and Valley Christian, but it was primarily those kids in that area because we wanted to provide a club volleyball experience that was affordable and that allowed for multi-sport participation. We did a small amount of tournaments, 4 to 5, 1 to 2 practices a week. We avoided game nights for basketball, and we didn't travel further than an hour away.
Okay. So
we really tried to make it about developing the kids in Oshkosh. And, you know, my club experience changed when I went to Xavier. I started coaching at Fox Cities Elite in Appleton. And that is definitely, you know, at that time, you know, definitely more of a national program, and it has expanded even more since. And I mean, that was eye-opening. Volleyball, you know, it gave me the gift to travel the country a little bit.
Okay.
You know, I've been to so many different places because of that. And I've seen so many, you know, different, not only different cities, but different kinds of athletes, different kinds of coaching styles. You know, I've gotten to meet some pretty incredible people because of it as well. And so club can be almost anything you want it to be, but it is, but it, you know, club volleyball, you know, it's like AAU for basketball.
Yeah.
You know, it can be very involved. And, you know, if you're, you know, quote unquote serious about it, you know, you can really play year round if you want to.
I know some of my students at Appleton East and some of my son's friends who played volleyball at FVL. I know they would talk about, you know, I'm going out to Vegas this weekend. And then the following weekend I'm down in Orlando. And it just was crazy to me because my kids weren't, the sports they played really didn't have that club level like that. Can you talk a little bit about that? And is it a special type of kid that can do those types of travel and play in that type of situation?
Yeah, it is. You know, it is. But our sport is really growing right now. And, you know, we are still climbing the hill. And it is, even in my 13 years in the Valley, what used to be able to get it done won't anymore. The talent level is so high and it's so deep. And, but yeah, it takes a special kid to make a national traveling team like that and to be competitive, because you'll find other teams, you know, in the state and around the country that they'll give the national option, right? And you can sign up and you can play in these tournaments, but what are you really getting out of it other than to say you travel to these cities, and so like FC Elite, when we would travel, we'd play at a very high level, in some of the tougher divisions, and our intent wasn't always to go and win. It was to go play the best we could find so we could improve. Yeah. And that was part of our philosophy, right? We wanted to train kids so they could be better for their school teams. And if they were truly that unique individual that could play in college, that and still is how you get seen. Those big time college coaches and even not so big time college coaches will go to these more national and regional events because they can see a whole pile of recruits at the same time. When there's hundreds of teams in one convention center, that's pretty popular with those coaches.
That right there has got to be a pretty cool experience when you have a convention center just full of volleyball being played. How many courts are being played? And that's got to be crazy.
It is. I mean, so down in Milwaukee, when they have like the state championship, so to speak, for club, it's called Badger Region, and that has about 30 courts, and that's actually quite small. When you go down to Texas and Dallas, and you go to Indy, which also connects to Lucas Oil Stadium, you'll have upwards over 100.
Wow.
Yeah, Lucas Oil is actually kind of unique because the convention center attaches, and they'll put courts on the turf.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
that's incredible.
It's pretty neat. But yeah, and then you see all these big time college coaches walking around like it's just business as usual. And I remember a number of years ago seeing that for the first time. It's like, oh, there goes the Nebraska coach and the Illinois coach, and
sure,
they're sitting in the row in front of you, and you don't know what to say or should I say anything. And yeah, those are pretty neat experiences.
Well, I would assume that women's college volleyball has just been thrusted onto a main stage over the last 4 or 5 years, and Wisconsin's success has probably played it's been a huge advantage to you getting girls to play and come out, and the youth as well. Can you talk a little bit about that possibly?
Yeah. NCAA volleyball it's had such a great year. Yeah. You had the college matches in a football stadium down in Nebraska.
Amazing.
Yeah. Over 90,000 people filled that stadium. And then Wisconsin set an attendance record in the Pfizer Forum playing Marquette. That was just beaten this past weekend down in Tampa at the national championship. Yeah. And so on Thursday I was there for the semifinal, and so I was a part of the record. But then they beat it again on Sunday. So I had my 72 hours or whatever. But you do hear that though. These young girls are watching. And they have role models. The way we look up to, Michael Jordan or whoever, they're now talking about these college athletes like that. And even my own daughters who are, 10 and 5, they'll ask questions and they'll see and they'll know names and they'll know who's playing by their logo. And it's neat to see because I don't know if we've ever been at that stage in female athletics. Right. And volleyball is just going to, like I said, we're still growing. I think the next steps are, so in college, you not only host the first 2 rounds of the tournament, but then you'll host both regionals as well in college.
Right.
How can we get to neutral sites for those?
Yeah.
Like they do for the men's March Madness, how do we get more games on, nationally televised and things like that? Because I think it's going to happen. It's just, who are going to be the pioneers and really dive into that because it's going to pay off for them.
It has to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the popularity is just skyrocketed. And like you said, it's amazing to watch they're some of the best athletes, the ability, their quick motion, their jumping. They're incredible athletes all around, from the boys all the way through the girls. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, and that's true too. Is that the boys volleyball is at its most popular ever. Right. We learned down at the convention last weekend that in high school, there's over 70,000 boys playing volleyball now, I mean, it was like what was it, like an 11% jump or 14% jump just in the last year. And I think by 2028, I believe that's when we host the Olympics again.
Yeah.
The goal for the American Volleyball Coaches Association is to have all 50 states have sanctioned boys high school volleyball.
Wow.
Right now, I think it's in the 30s right now, so they got a ways to go. But yeah, that's their goal, because that is also growing in popularity. Boys are figuring out how fun it is, and that and that plays into where you're talking about just the athleticism. That's fun to watch, but then the suspense, right? Those long rallies and just keeping it up, and you're at the edge of your seat and the back and forth, and that's. It's like an intense version of tennis, like an even more intense version, right? You get 6 people out there, and all screaming and fighting over the ball and jumping, So, yeah, it's a great time.
All right, so let's start. So you're at Oshkosh North, and you're coaching, and you come to Xavier. What brings you to Xavier? What draws you?
Yeah, so I was playing a men's league down in Oshkosh on Tuesday nights. It was just a 4-on-4 SAM league, and one of the people on our team was the former coach at Xavier. So he coached at Xavier like 2007 to like 2012, something like that. And so he had told me that the current coach at Xavier was resigning. She was going to step away. She had a big family and just needed to take more time to focus on that. He's like, you should apply. And so I thought about it and eventually did. Again, I'm noticing this theme that it takes me a lot of convincing to do things. And then, June of 2016, I got hired there. And yeah, I owe that to that former head coach for letting me know. And that's been a journey. I'll tell you. Yeah, it's been great.
That's what I was going to ask. So what was the program like when you took over?
Very competitive. Very
competitive. Okay.
Yeah. They had just gotten done. They had gone to sectional semifinals the year before.
Okay.
We've always been in contention, to win conference. And so in 2009, that was the last time they had been to state. Okay. And they lost the state championship. They got runner-up. And then, they were competing every year, whether that was a regional final or, like I said, a sectional semi, some conference titles in there. But that program was primed and ready to go. Yeah. Okay. So it started off in a very good spot. What
do you think has helped Xavier continue and the girls program continue to have that success and be at the edge of being super successful like you are right now? What's contributed to that?
We have such dedicated people at our youth levels. Okay. We'll start playing volleyball. Our middle school starts in 5th grade.
Okay.
And so the kids will start playing volleyball in 5th grade. And these are, parent volunteers that are coaching these teams and hauling these kids all over. And I really think that gives us an advantage. And I think that those extra 2 years really matters. We've done I think a good job as a staff to add on to that as well with our youth camps. We do things throughout the year just to promote the sport and get the kids just in the gym watching. And I think success can breed success. I remember these kids, like the current seniors. I remember them at, sectional final volleyball games when they were in, 6th, 7th, 8th grade. And, they kind of had their own little, student sections of the middle schoolers, so to speak. And,
sure,
they see those girls. And like we were talking about how the college women are now the role models. It also works in our system like that. They want to be those athletes. And
Xavier has, I've been on the scholarship committee for Red Smith for a number of years, and Xavier has always had some pretty special athletes, athletes who are multiple letter winners. all kinds of things they're doing in the community. Do you see a lot of that throughout your student body, that these are just special kids? I know you're going to, we'll talk about your girls' volleyball team in a little bit, but do you see that in the student body itself? They're just good groups of kids.
They are. I mean, they really are. And you look at that, and you look at how hard they work in the classroom too. I mean, if you're if you're under a 3.7 or a 3.5 GPA, you're in the bottom half of your class. I mean, that's, the standard is just a little bit different. And, kids aren't just trying to meet the standard, they're trying to exceed it. And I think that high academic rigor just bleeds down into everything else we do. I mean, we're so strong in our faith. We take our athletics, maybe sometimes too seriously, but, the arts and the theater department,
right?
We really are, we get committed and we go all in. And I think it's the people we have. Like I do, like at the middle school, we get these dedicated people that are willing to give kids opportunities that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise. And then they want to make sure that they're doing it right.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've seen that with different sport, but the Saints football program, Peter Katz, just given a ton to those young boys playing 6th, 7th, and 8th grade football was absolutely incredible. And if that's the type of person you have in your lower levels, I can understand why it's breeding success at your high school level. Yeah,
Peter is a perfect example of one of those really committed people, because it's not only football, right? The co-op between FVL and Xavier for the middle school football, which he pours just hundreds of volunteer hours into. But now they've started it with wrestling.
Yeah.
I've heard little rumors that they want to start doing some baseball things. I mean, it's only going to continue to grow, participation opportunities. And people like Peter, that's a great example.
And the more opportunities you give these kids, like you talk about at the 5th grade level for volleyball, that triggers, that gets these kids involved. Not only do they get involved with sports, but they know they have to become schedulers because they want to play sports. They have to keep their grades up. And all these things kind of come together. And I want to start talking about your teams. So you're at Xavier in, did you say 2016 was the first year? So let's start talking about these teams and moving up to where you are today. So how was it coming from a public school like Oshkosh North and the team you had there, and coming to a smaller school and smaller student body? I don't know what your team size was. How was it making that transition?
Yeah, team size and participation was actually roughly the same.
Okay.
You can only roster so many before it starts to become, a little bit of an issue. And, I will say one of the things that stood out to me right away was how much the kids and then the parents just appreciated your time.
Okay.
The thank yous after just routine practices and things like that. I mean, it really made you feel valued, so that then you wanted to in turn give them more. And
Sure.
maybe that's even part of, the dedication of these parents, is that they're teaching these kids just great values on top of it.
Perfect. Yeah.
But I mean, unfortunately, so when I was at Oshkosh North, we had our couple years where we were competitive, and then we had a couple of down years. It was more challenging to get things started there. Stepping into Xavier, though, right away, I mean, that first year we were a state contender. I remember we were ranked in the top 10 all year long. We had a good run. Those first 3 years we had Elizabeth Grigorski, who ended up playing at Madison, and she's currently at Kansas State. She just finished up, what would be her 5th year, I think. She had a red shirt in there. She had a bunch of injuries, both in high school and college, which kind of, sidetracked some things, but, she grew a ton from it. So we had a tremendously talented group. And, all those, how we build that program from young on, we were able to kind of replenish that every year, so to speak. And, when COVID hit, things got a little dicey for everyone.
Right.
We went from playing 40 games or so or more a year to we played 12 that year.
Wow.
And that took some time to kind of recover from. And, it was, someone who's as relationship based as I try to be, that wearing the mask was a barrier,
Sure.
Not, I don't want to get into right or wrong about it, but just having it there, them not being able to see your facial expressions, to hear you clearly, they can't reciprocate, so that those were 2 tough years because we wore them in 21 as well.
Yeah.
And, the current seniors were freshmen and sophomores during that time, and we had brought a good chunk of them up.
Okay.
We had a couple smaller classes, so to speak. And so they fit not only positionally, but also just, we knew there was an opportunity for them because of these season lengths were going to be shorter. Things are going to be a little bit more compromised with, smaller groups and things like that. So we had different opportunities to work with them. These last 2 years though, have just been different, and not that, after we won in 22, for me, it felt like we had done it for the entirety of the program, like the entire history of it.
Sure.
Right. Going back to the 70s when it first started, and, all those alumni and all those previous coaches, right? Because that was our first state title in history for girls volleyball.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so it felt like, nearly 50 years, and we finally, hit the peak, hit the pinnacle. And so for me, that was really fulfilling. I'm one that likes to get into the history and things like that. Mm-hmm. But, that year was just, those kids learned so much from the adversity that, COVID and those seasons threw at them, that they wanted to make sure that they were going to have a good experience and that they were going to accept their role no matter what it was. And, there wouldn't be little infighting. And if there were little disagreements, they would just, they'd sort it out and they wouldn't let it get to them on the court. And, 22, we won, and it was just, that kind of gripping edge of your seat, like, oh, what's next? Can we do it? And then we did. And it was, like I said, it's so fulfilling. This year we returned all but one player from that 22 team.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this year, expectations had then kind of shifted, and we acknowledge that. But the biggest thing that we wanted to just, look, right in the eyes was, we can't get complacent, right? We can't say like, oh, we should be better because we're a year older and because we returned everyone, or almost everyone, that we should just, we should be able to do it again. We didn't. And we worked so hard. I mean, I remember the seniors give speeches at our end of the year banquet. So we had, 6 girls were up there and they're all bawling their eyes out of how much the program means to them. And, one of them had just said, like, we had set out to make complacency our enemy, and we just never let it in. And it was, and I hate to talk like this, but I mean, our postseason run was pretty dominant.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yes.
And like I said, I don't want to sound like I'm not being humble, but I mean, the scores of those games, and we didn't drop a set. And that's those girls. And when we played the state championship, that was the best game we played all year.
Wow.
They continue to find ways to level up in those moments. It was a special 2 teams for sure.
So going back, I mean, maybe this was in 21 or maybe it was sometime in 22. When did you get that inkling that, this is a possibility that we can go to state, and not only go, we can win?
Yeah. I mean, I think it might even go back to 2016. I mean, that first year, I mean, I remember we used to run like 2 or 3 day tryouts then. And I remember we formed varsity, and we kind of have them go to one gym, and we do JV, and we have them go to another area, and so on. And I remember walking into the gym, our main gym, with the new varsity. I mean, right, we've been formed for minutes. Mm-hmm. And, I looked at them and I'm like, hey, this is your 2016 Xavier volleyball team. Yeah, you guys ready to work? And I said, hey, we're going to go all the way to state. I said it in 2016, right? And so it didn't happen for 6 years. But it's just been kind of that goal looming off, kind of in the shadows, so to speak, that, like, hey, we're going to work as hard as we can to give ourselves a shot to get there.
Sure.
So then with this group in particular, I mean, I saw some of these seniors when they were coming up as, 6th, 7th graders. Mm-hmm. And then, like I said, the way it just worked out with numbers and positions and things like that, we were able to bring a good amount up their freshman and sophomore years and just be able to train and develop them. I even wondered, like in that 21 season, do we have what it takes? I think we could make a run, and some things just didn't go our way, and, it is what it is. But like I said, all that adversity through those 2 years just – it toughened our kids up. And,
that's awesome.
And then that 22 season, we played FEL.
Yep.
We played FEL at Xavier in the middle of the season. Okay. And I think it was 4 weeks before that, we lost a heartbreaker to them at a tournament. It was really close, went to the final set. And so about a month later, and again, I hate to talk like this, but we just blew them out. I think they got to 16. We played at 25. They got to 16. Yeah. That was the highest score in one of the sets. And I mean, I remember addressing the team the next day, and I just said, like, hey, if you guys want to get to state, like, at this point, that's almost a choice.
Yeah.
Yep. We got 4 or so weeks left of the regular season. How hard do you want to work? How much do you believe in yourself and each other? Because, like, we are that talented. And if we can keep all the other things together, there's, a lot of things would have to go wrong. We'd have to hit one of those generational teams that could get in our way. And so we really just bought into that. And, we weren't trying to be arrogant or anything, but we're just, again, trying to give young ladies confidence, but also just trying to get them to acknowledge, like, you are that good, so. That's
awesome.
Yeah.
So I suppose, you look at that and you're hungry for that first title. It's a totally different type of motivation, excuse me, that you need to have this year to say, all right, we did it once. Let's go out and do it again. Mm-hmm. But we all still have to have that drive.
Yeah. And you're right. It is a different motivation. That first one is awfully sweet. It is, right? Because it's something as an athlete or a coach, I mean, you work, your entire career for, right?
Right.
If that's, your goal. And, this year, expectations were higher and we acknowledged them, but we tried not to compare ourselves to that team. We didn't want to look back and be like, oh, the 22 team would be doing this. We never did that. They didn't need anything like that. I think my goal, and I might have said it in one of the press conferences after one of the state games, is, whether the kids realize it or not, like, my number one priority was to take as much pressure off them as possible. Mm-hmm. Because, if we worked in practice and we could maintain, a reasonable amount of focus for a high school team, again, we had the talent. We just had to keep everything together and just trying to keep moving forward. And those kids really bought into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have some players who are moving on to the next level? You said you had a group of, you didn't lose anybody, so do you have some girls that are leaving your program but moving on to the next levels?
So we have Olivia Newman. She was a middle blocker for us, and she will be playing at Green Bay next year, UWGB.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah, both her parents went there, and it was a really good fit. That's a good, close, tight-knit family. So to be close to home and to, play D1 volleyball, which was a dream of hers, is awesome. And we got a few others, a couple are still looking. Our setter, she still wants to play really bad. Okay. And, and she's one too that very high academic, and, she wants to go on and, become a surgeon. And, so it's really got to be a good fit for her too.
Sure.
So, and then we got a lot of multi-sport athletes as well. I mean, a couple of girls that are playing basketball currently. And then, a couple of kids in spring that'll be, in track and soccer and things like that. So, tremendously talented group athletically, but better people too. I mean, really, really good group.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you that. You brought that up. I was going to ask you how many multi-sport athletes you have on that team.
It's at some point or another, every kid on that team was a multi-sport athlete.
Okay. Yep.
There are a couple that have stopped, and I think they're just in volleyball now. But, even, they would do it like through their sophomore year.
Right. That seems to be that tipping point.
Right. Yep. It does. Yeah. And if, I try to talking them into like, well, if you don't have to do 3 sports, if winter or spring is too much, maybe, make it, a different season and things like that. And, I was a track guy, so I'm always trying to, advocate for track and like, there's a spot or a event for everyone. You don't want to run distance? Great. Run sprints. You can't jump up, jump out, right? Things like that. And if you can't do any of that, try throwing. And, things like, there's, again, like you had said, they're developing different muscle groups. They're using them in different ways. And they learn different roles in those sports.
So I wanted to touch on one other thing. So you're at Xavier, you're the volleyball coach. So how did you think that, I want to take on this athletic director job as well?
So when I got my master's, it was coaching and athletic administration. That was one of the goals I had was I wanted to become an AD. The other goal was to, maybe someday down the road here, maybe you want to play or coach in college.
Sure.
But, that AD and that role and knowing the former athletic director at Xavier, Mrs. Bates, she had been there forever. And, when I got hired, I didn't think much of it. But then a few years in, she had started mentioning retirement every year. And, I had just started thinking like, well, maybe I should start, learning a little bit more about that job and what it all really takes. And so I started, I just started helping with some game management things, for a couple of football games and some basketball games and things like that, and just tried to gain some, real life experience. And very blessed to have been chosen for that position. It was a pretty highly sought after position from what I had been told, and it's a very highly academic, obviously, school, but athletically too. So, I mean, it's a great position to be in because you have some of that success. And so even those long days where, maybe things aren't going your way and you're doing some of the non-fun things of the job, you can look back and, realize like you're doing it for the kids and, having them be successful doesn't hurt. It's not all about that, obviously, but, seeing their hard work pay off is rewarding too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now you have some excitement going around Xavier right now as far as the athletic program is concerned. What's going on looking at your future plans at Xavier?
Yeah, so we a long time coming and a lot of years of work have been put into this. They predate me even. We finally broke ground to install field turf on our main stadium field. And so that happened back in November, and we're looking at a end of June completion date. So it'll be ready for the fall sports season. But we're awfully excited about that. And it's going to, I just think, give us give the kids another edge, some pride to be in for Xavier and our facilities. It's, I think a lot of people might look at it and be like, oh, is this just a football project? And no, right? It's not, it's going to benefit both boys and girls soccer. Yep. It's also going to give, lacrosse is a new WIA sport. It's going to, while we're not the host school of those co-ops, I have reached out to those schools and just said, like, look, once we have this turf, we'd be willing to host, a game a year, if there ever needs to be an alternate site for practices, now we have that, availability. It also gives the Saints football program another place to play.
Right.
It'll be a consistent surface in bad weather. Especially, I look at, that early spring season, right? March, April, where we're canceling events. And the first time the softball team gets outside, it's for a game and not a practice.
Right, exactly.
And while they can't, they can't really play on it, a game, they can go out there and they can throw, they can field, they can run around outdoors, and they can even do a little bit of batting practice on it. And, it's going to be different. Instead of scheduling all these, soccer games at home and then have to play them away on turf, we can actually host.
Sure.
So we're excited, and we're just excited for the upgrade in, facilities. It's been a number of years since a major athletic upgrade, to that extent. I think it was around 2006 we added an auxiliary gym. So yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how, they just think of football. Oh, you're putting in a turf field. Okay. But like you said, all of these other sports benefit from it. And it gives the kids a, like you said, a sense of pride that, this is ours. This is where we practice. This is where we play. This is our field. Huge, huge piece of pride for them. Is there anything else that, you want to mention or you want to shout out or anything else? I know we've been about an hour here and want to be mindful of your time. Anything else you want to throw out there?
We're in the middle of the winter sports season right now, and boys and girls basketball are both doing great and having a good year so far. And our wrestling program is they just got their first a big conference win last week, and they were excited about that. And both boys and girls hockey, which we're the lead school of the co-ops as well. They're out there competing as well, and it's just winter is always an exciting time because I'm so busy in fall with trying to juggle both roles of coach and AD, and it's not that I'm less busy, but I just can use my time differently.
Sure.
And so you get to have more opportunities to go and watch practice, even if it's just for 5 minutes, just to pop in and to you get to pay attention to the games a little bit more because you're not worrying about something else happening in the background. Or so good luck to all those teams as they hit about the midway season of their or midpoint of their season. So.
Well, Luke, I appreciate you coming on. It was great to learn a little bit about your story. It was awesome to hear that journey through that Xavier volleyball program and where you guys are. And, looking ahead, hopefully you guys can make a nice run again next year. Don't want to jinx anything or push anything on you, but what a great 2 years. It's been super exciting to know what's going on and to just see these teams in the news and run through state like you guys did this year. That was fantastic to watch. So, really appreciate your time, and thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great.
It's that time again. Once again, it's time for a Red Smith Banquet Throwback. And for this episode, we go back to the year of COVID when we put on a virtual banquet. Our own Jeremy Davis sat down with legendary basketball coach Bo Ryan. And what makes this interview so special is Jeremy is a UW-Madison graduate, but he was also Bo Ryan's manager. So Jeremy sat on the bench with Bo Ryan through an NCAA tournament, Final Four appearance, that whole thing. So it makes for a really, really interesting and intimate conversation with the legendary Bo Ryan.
Red Smith Sports Awards Banquet Throwback.
The Red Smith Award, of course, goes to someone who has made some unique contributions to sport in Wisconsin. And also epitomizes the great values that Red Smith exhibited.
Let's give a Red Smith welcome.
He's the 2021 Red Smith Award winner. He is Coach Bo Ryan. Coach, thanks for joining us.
It's nice to visit with you and to see the things that you're doing now, and that you're out there trying to help people. You're out there trying to help the youth of Appleton and doing this thing with me. And I'm really happy because it's nice to know that former players and managers give back.
When we were talking about scheduling today's interview, I loved hearing that really the one thing we were working around was making sure that you could watch the Badgers later today. You still watch every single possession?
I do. And watching games, to me, is one of the hardest things to do when it's your former assistant or a family member, or both. In this case, with Will, at being at Green Bay, I last about 30 seconds, watch 3 turnovers, and Kelly throws me out of the room because of my comments. I'd like to see him at least cut that down to 2 turnovers in the first 3 minutes. But no, he's watching Greg and with the Badgers and watching Will with Green Bay. It's interesting. For me, JD, it is very, very difficult to watch somebody that I've been very close to over the years, family and former assistants and former players. But as I get older, Kelly's hoping that I'll mellow a little bit. So I'm still waiting.
She's still waiting, though, yeah. How often do you check in with Coach Gard?
Oh, we talk maybe once a week. We try to stay connected as possible, but I do not bother him during the season or call. And if he knows where to find me, if he's looking for a tip, or like, remember when we did this, or remember when we did that, what made us do that, every once in a while. But he's been at it long enough now where he's gonna go way past the rest of us relics that coached at Wisconsin. He'll break all those records, and he'll do it in a way where he'll be teaching a lot of good things to his student athletes.
One of the most interesting guys that I ever met was the guy who coached you, Coach Rainey. He was both your high school and college coach, one of the most unique characters I've ever been around. Can you talk about what led to you playing for him at both levels, and then what your relationship is with him now?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said played for him in high school and college, because when we tell people, or somebody brings it up, that I played for him for 7 years, everyone thinks that my grades were in high school. So it was 3 years in high school, 4 years in college. I went to the college to Wilkes University because of Coach Rainey. I was going to either Temple or Rutgers at the time, and it just seemed natural to continue to play for him. He had that kind of influence. Other than my dad, no one else has ever had anywhere near the influence that Coach Rainey has. He's a much more of a character, much easier to get along with when he's not your coach. and he was my assistant coach at Platteville, and did a great job of staying out of my way, as I always say.
But he stayed around for.
But he was. No, his insight and his and the players loved him. I was the good guy. Or the bad guy, excuse me. He was the good guy, and he could always calm guys down and do that for us. So, and it was really neat going to the Final Fours and having him right at my side the whole time for the whole experience. He was like a kid in a candy store. But yes, he had a very big influence. He was the guidance counselor of my high school, besides being the head coach. I was president of the class, so I spent all my non-classroom hours at his office.
What was it about the Kohl Center playing at home that was so special that helped you be so dominant there?
So I think our consistency really helped make the Kohl Center what it was for the fans, and the fans in return gave us their energy, and we certainly used it.
Coach, even though you've retired now, I know you're still very involved with Coaches versus Cancer. Can you talk a little bit about what that cause means to you and how you're still involved with that?
I appreciate you bringing that up. The person who got me into college coaching that gave me my first job was Bill Cofield. Bill Cofield was the first African-American head coach of any major sport in the Big Ten in 1976, and very few people know about it. But I thanked him recently with the virtual thing that I did for the Wisconsin Hall of Fame. And people said, well, who's that? I said, well, he was a coach. He coached at Lincoln University, coached at Prairie View, and then coached at Dominican College, where Kelly and I met, and then was an assistant at Virginia with Terry Holland, and then got the Wisconsin job. The reason I'm bringing him up with your question of Coaches versus Cancer, we were let go in 1982. And I say we, the staff, and within a year, Coach Cofield died of pancreatic cancer. I had an assistant coach at Platteville, Denny Morgan, same thing, intestinal cancer. My roommate from college, best friend, pancreatic cancer. So when we got together and started the Coaches versus Cancer in Madison, we had no idea where it was going to go. We raised about $60,000 the first year, and the last year the highest was $1.5 million. So we've raised about $8 million for cancer research, a lot of it staying right at the Carbone Center in Madison, and some of it going to the best programs out there, the best research centers in certain areas, because the American Cancer Society channels money to the best of the best, and also locally. So the way that people in Wisconsin responded to our Coaches versus Cancer, there's no other school, there's no other place in the country that raises what we do in Madison. It's already shown its positive effects. There's better detection, there's better treatment, there's more and more things happening. Cancer hasn't gone away. And so Coaches versus Cancer isn't going to go away. We're still going to, as coaches, take that up as our charity of choice. And it's obviously near and dear to my heart, and hopefully we can eradicate this thing. So by raising funds, that's how we're trying to be a part of the solution.
Well, it's certainly an incredible job that you've done thus far helping with that cause. We certainly appreciate you helping with our charity here today as well. Thank you for my time that I had with you in college. Thank you for your time here today, and congratulations on being the 2021 Red Smith Award winner.
I certainly am humbled to be sitting here knowing that that people up there actually would bestow that to a guy like myself who grew up with a dad who did more for youth sports in the Philly area than any person I've ever met. And that's not because he was my dad. He started 2 youth organizations. One has his name to it on the football field, and with very limited funds. And there's a lot of players that he coached that I know are very thankful for what he did for youth sports. So what you're doing up there, this Red Smith Award and this get-together that you're going to have, even though it's virtual this year, keep up the good work, because there's a lot of kids who maybe never will say thank you, but deep in their hearts, they know that they've been helped by people who care about their development when they're young.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Coach. Thanks again for your time, and go Badgers.
Forever.
All right, time for that segment where we try our hardest to just totally forget something, although it never happens. And we talk about what we never want to forget. It is forgotten and never forgotten. So, Joe, I'm going to let you, what is your forgotten?
Well, Tosh, like we said earlier, maybe this is the first time we set up, but we're taping this on New Year's Day, 2024, and it's forgotten. I'm going to see how long I can forget this, Tosh, but it's snow. Man, there is no snow. This is unbelievable. Right. It's been 50 degrees. It's been no snow. I mean, there's a little dusting out there, I know, but this is just nuts. And maybe this happens before, but snow has definitely been forgotten.
Yeah, it does happen. I mean, if you look back to even the 1950s and you look at decades, in the 1950s, there were only 5 years that we had White Christmas in the 50s. But as we move through and progress through, it is a little bit, it seems like we haven't had any snow, but 3 years ago, my boys were out skating on the outdoor rink and there was snow. So the last 2 years have been kind of warm, and but you know, we have short memories, right?
We do. That's so, because I was going to ask you, like, why is that? Because we always, especially around the holidays, we always maybe just romanticize about, you know, a foot of snow outside. We have a fire going. We have a nice warm house. Yeah, you know, there's always snow and cold, but that isn't always the case. And I don't know, maybe that's just, it's a human. I'm always curious by that thought, because I do the same thing. I always feel like, well, we always have snow at Christmas, but we really don't always have snow at Christmas.
No, and I think when I saw an article about White Christmases, we really only average about like 6 to 7 per decade.
Yeah,
White Christmases. So there's 3 or 4 years through that decade that we don't have a White Christmas.
It's interesting, Tosh. That's why I love doing this podcast. Makes you think. Makes you think. Well, Tosh, with that, what are you thinking of forgetting?
Well, for me, school starts again tomorrow, which would be the 2nd.
Sorry.
And this is a long stretch now without any time off. And I hate January and February. January, February, and March are the longest stretch of this entire school year.
Yeah.
We have like a break here, a break there, but it's not like, you know, when you start school, you have a break around in October, then you have a break in Thanksgiving, then you have Christmas break. Now really we have to look forward to spring break.
Right.
So this is a long stretch, and I always want to forget this stretch of school. It gets long. I mean, it'll be good for a couple weeks here, but then it starts all of a sudden dragging, and it gets worse and worse. So I want to forget about these months. January and February are the 2 longest months of school.
I never thought of that. I guess kind of like the dog days of summer, right? From baseball.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel for you. Plus, it's just dark all those months. You just get no sunlight.
Absolutely. And when you teach at Appleton East, you have no windows as well. So.
Oh, yes. Oh, I never thought of that.
So there's not a lot of suns being seen during the week for me, but oh well, you have to deal with it. So
yeah.
Well, we're forgetting about some stuff. What do we never want to forget?
Well, Tosh, I guess it's maybe my motto. You and I aren't too big on resolutions necessarily, but maybe one that I'm kind of taking. And somebody told this to me, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to adopt this way of thinking. It's what Clint Eastwood always says. And that guy's in great shape for 90, whatever he is. He's pretty good. And his motto is, don't let the old man in. So I'm never forgetting that motto. That's going to be 2024. Don't let the old man in, and just fight that guy off.
Well, good luck with that.
Yeah. It's a battle.
I see a lot of trips to crunch for you.
Yeah.
And a lot of steps with your job. So
yeah,
it might be a little easier to fight that man off.
It's doable, I think, for me. So
this is something recent for me. And it's become a tradition because of the NHL, and that is the Winter Classic, which is on New Year's Day. We've kind of, as a family, we've started continually watch this, and we get together and sit around and watch that outdoor classic game. And there's something classic about an outdoor NHL game. And this year it's in Seattle, and beautiful weather out there, 45 degrees, and they have ice. It's a little slow. The sun's shining in Seattle, which it usually I shouldn't say usually isn't, but that's the common idea that it doesn't have sun in Seattle. But cool thing that they do. They've had lots of people on, and they've had lots of places. I mean, they had a Winter Classic in Dodger Stadium, which is unbelievable. Basically, they've said that they can put ice anywhere.
That's crazy.
So we'll have to see. There's a couple places they've talked about. They've talked about a Winter Classic in Florida.
Oh, could you?
Of all
man.
things, they think they could do it. So we'll have to see what happens there, and possibly one in Arizona.
So is it actual ice, or is it what we had talked about?
It's actual ice.
Boy,
yeah, it's ice.
And they can keep that refrigerated. That coils. No kidding.
They do. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So, yeah, it's a fun tradition. I mean, they've been doing this for, I don't even know. They have several outdoor games, but the Winter Classic is the big one on New Year's Day.
Yeah. Speaking of Crunch, I was actually there today, and I saw on one of the TVs they had it on, so I was watching it from a stair stepper for a little while.
Awesome. Yeah, it's fun. Boys and I sit around, and especially when we don't have ice on the backyard rink.
Yeah.
We can look at it there.
What were the snacks?
So, beer dip and pretzels.
Oh, yeah.
We had Rice Krispie bars. We had, what else was there? There's brownies. There's a lot of leftovers from last night.
Yeah. Gotta love leftovers. Taylor asked us that, right? Leftovers. We're big leftovers guys.
Yep, that's exactly it. So,
yeah.
Well, that was not an old look at new. That was a look at Forgotten and Never Forget.
Never forget what segment we're on. Thank you for listening to another great episode of the Newsa-Cast. We'd really appreciate it if you'd hit up our social pages, subscribe, like, follow, and don't be afraid to engage. Head over to our YouTube channel to get exclusive content like the full interviews and speeches from past Red Smith banquets. Thanks for listening to the Newsa-Cast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and tell a friend. A huge thank you to Diggstown for all the music in today's episode. Catch a gig or find them on Spotify. Help us grow by subscribing wherever you get your pods or sharing the Newsa-Cast. Follow us on Facebook, X, TikTok, or Instagram. One of the best ways to help us grow is to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Northeastern Wisconsin Sports Advancement is a 501c3 organization. Our mission is to raise money, provide support, and bring greater awareness for youth sports organizations in Northeast Wisconsin. We do this primarily through the Red Smith Sports Award Banquet and the Newsa-Cast. Each year, we give back to the community through 3 initiatives: the Every Kid Plays Grant, the Gives Back Initiative, and scholarships to student athletes.